In today's video, we are going to make a super simple cutting board. This can be your first cutting board if you don't have any other experience making cutting boards. This is a great place to start, but it will still be a very, very nice cutting board that you can sell for probably about $100 to $150, depending on where you live. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna make this board out of black walnut and a little bit of maple highlight. Okay, so I have the boards laid out kind of how the final cutting board will be. These main strips of black walnut are 1.25 inches thick. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, 7 of them here. Then I cut, these are about, make sure I tell you right here. These are 1/2 inch strips. I have a 1/2 inch strip of maple, 1/2 inch strip of black walnut, and then another 1/2 inch strip of maple. Whenever you have varying widths, it just really adds a nice accent. Now, you can see over here that the boards are different lengths. So that happened because I was kind of making this out of some scrap wood, and I was trying to do this in the most efficient manner. But right now, this way, if I measure it, it's about 10.25 inches. If I measure this way from the shortest piece of wood, it's about 14.5 inches. So the final dimensions of this board will probably be about 14 by 10. So just kind of have that in mind, but you can make this 18 by 12, you can make it 16 by 12. I mean, any kind of cutting board. This is gonna be just like a nice vegetable cutting board. So, you can put apples or strawberries or fruits on it. You could probably even put a chicken on this, a board of this size. So it's gonna be a nice medium-sized cutting board. I'm gonna go ahead and glue everything up with Titebond 3. So right here, I'm planing down this board and I'm going very light passes. I'm really turning the knob at the top of my planer about a 1/4 turn, which takes off only about a 32nd of an inch at a time. You don't want to get too aggressive or get in a hurry. So this is what your board looks like. We've got it planed down on one side, and on the other side, I haven't planed it down yet. What I want to do first is check and make sure that this board does not have any warp or wobble. So I'm gonna put this board on a surface that I know is flat. In this case, it's my table saw. This is the most true surface in my shop. And I'm gonna go to opposite corners. I'm gonna put pressure, and I'm looking to see if there's any kind of rock. Now, there's not in this case, so we're good to go ahead and plane the other side. Remember, when you're planing, you're gonna cut this side down to mirror what the bottom side is. So if there was a warp on the bottom side of my cutting board, when I plane the top, there will be a warp on both sides, or there might be wobble on both sides, or a twist on both sides. So the bottom is true, and so now I'm good to plane the top. Now, this next step is 100% optional. All I'm doing here is putting a chamfer. A chamfer just means a 45-degree angle router bit. And I'm putting it on the top and bottom of this cutting board. What I've found is that when you can add just a few small design elements, it will help your cutting boards sell for much more, and really it's just about 5 minutes, if that, of extra work. So if you don't have a router, that's totally fine. I'm obviously doing this with a palm router. I don't even have a router table with dust collection. That's why I'm outside. But this will really, really help your cutting board sell and just give it a nice design touch. Before we move on, if this video has been helpful for you, if you've learned something, if you could hit the like button, it's a thumbs up button. It looks just like this. It should be right below the screen. It will really, really help me out. I really appreciate it. I'm not gonna beg you guys, but I will beg you guys, hit the like button and subscribe while you're here, because We make tons of cutting boards, charcuterie boards. We make all kinds of awesome projects here on the channel. All right, enough of that. Let's keep going. All right, we have finished up on the router, and what I'm going to do before moving to sanding is check and make sure there aren't any gaps or anything that needs to be filled with epoxy. Remember, this is a cutting board. It's going to be exposed to water and food, and so we want this to be sealed really, really well. So if there is any kind of gap that I may find on this cutting board, I'm going to fill it with epoxy, scrape it flush, and then we'll move on to sanding and finishing. Save yourself some time in the next step when we get to sanding by getting a little flat, straight edge and just kind of scrape the epoxy back and forth. You want it to fill in the crack, but you also don't want to leave it too high above the crack because you'll just have to sand it away later. What I'll probably do is come back in about 15 minutes when this epoxy is a little bit more tacky, and then I'll scrape it away, but make sure the hole is filled in well as well. All right, so I just sanded this down, and I'll probably sand this, put a coat of finish on it, sand it again, and then put one more coat of finish on it. But I use Watco Butcher Block, not sponsored. I just have always used them for my cutting boards and charcuterie boards. In a second, you're also gonna see me use these little plastic triangles. And what these will do, these are a great buy on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. This will cut your finishing time in half because instead of having to finish one side, wait for it to cure, flip it, wait for that to cure, you can do both sides at once. These things are so small, they don't leave any kind of dots on your cutting board.